So today we're going to talk or go into the spending plan. And the spending plan, similar to the net worth, is very important in terms of the early foundation towards setting you and putting you on the right path to financial freedom. Okay, so if you've already done a financial plan with AllGen, you should have your trail map available. And the spending plan piece of your trail map, as you can see here, is going to be the top portion of the foundation. It's called your monthly cash flow.
Yeah, and it's just looking at your high-level total monthly living expenses versus monthly take-home. We're going to get into how to design the whole cash flow plan here.
That's exactly right. Okay, if you haven't done financial planning or have a trail map with AllGen, that's okay, because as Jason mentioned, we're going to get into the specifics of how to create your own cash flow statement, income statement, and you'll be able to, by the end of this lesson, know how to make that happen for yourself and use it as a tool towards your path to financial freedom. But again, if you haven't, we encourage you to do it with us and continue to follow along. So what is a spending plan? A spending plan, and it's interesting, it's a framework for managing monthly cash flow. We use the word spending plan. There's another term that a lot of people have a taboo, which is called a budget, okay? And even myself, I don't like the word budget. I don't think humans are made to budget, okay? But we use the word spending plan because it tracks your income and expenses. It's a report of previous spending patterns, okay, and a forecast that you can use of future expenses, okay? So a spending plan really is a great tool to allow you to see where you've come from and help you make good decisions moving forward.
That's right.
Okay. So again, it's referred to as a budget, but we prefer to use it as a tool for analyzing and decision making to be able to make better financial decisions moving forward with your cash flow.
I mean, right up there with your net worth, your spending plan, both of those two, tracking those together are critical for your long-term success.
And why is this important? It is critical because so many times in the years, the 20 plus years I've been doing this, a lot of people come into my office and say, Paul, I don't know where my money goes at the end of the month. You know, and honestly, I said, if you don't know, I'm gonna know less, okay? Because, you know, at the end of the day, financial success requires you being in control of your money.
That's right.
Okay, whether you're the head of a business, of a corporation, your family finances, you have to be in control. And sadly, in this country, money's controlling us versus us controlling our money. So the spending plan allows you to be proactive versus reactive. Oh my goodness, I have an emergency. I don't have enough cash. I didn't budget to create an emergency fund. All that it brings it all together.
That's right. You know, and a lot of times, you know, especially in a relationship, one couple, you know, a couple can, sometimes they don't like the budget, they don't like the spending plan, or they have a fear about it because the way they grew up or something, you know, maybe someone has used it to control them, maybe their parents said, you can't buy that, it's not in the budget, or, you know, that one spouse is controlling the other spouse. Honestly, you know, they're best done together. And, you know, one person may be more apt to doing spreadsheets and all of that, and that's fine. Let that person kind of do that, but the other person, you know, needs to have a say in it too. And once you do this properly and get on the same page, it really opens up the lines of communication, and it's actually very freeing. Whereas most people think it's constraining, it isn't. You're telling your money where to go. If you want to go on vacation, put it in the budget. You can go on vacation. You just have to, you know, be able to allocate that money towards whatever goal you're going after.
That's right. And I will disclaim, if you've never done this, it's really awkward at first. Okay, it's really tough and challenging because it's a discipline that most people haven't done, have not been taught to do. It's kind of like getting healthier. And when you start working out, you're not going to start off with 150 pound, 200 pound weights. You got to work your way into that. When you start running, you start working your way up to doing a marathon. Same thing with doing a spending plan. It takes time. It's not natural. Okay, but it's kind of like driving. You know, I've got a son who's learning to drive right now, and you can see how awkward he feels, you know, because this is different and he wants to make sure. But as you very well know, after you do this enough, you don't even think about it, okay? You're not paying attention anymore. And the same is going to be with this. So again, this is important because it gives you the ability to be intentional with cash flow management, which is critical for financial freedom.
It really is.
You know, so we know what it is. We know why it's important. So what are the effects of having or not having a spending plan? Jason, share with us some of your thoughts.
Yeah, so the dangers of not having one is, number one, you may be spending more than you make. And when you do that, you're going into debt, okay? Which is the next point here. And a lot of times people, especially that have never done a budget, most of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And unfortunately, you have expenses come up and you have to pay for it, and then you get an overdraft fee. And you just get and then that's just a cycle that's hard to get out of. So you can avoid having overdraft fees by knowing where your money's going.
That's right.
And you know, just it's good overall to know where your money's going, so you can direct it where you want it to go, instead of being out of control. So you end up paying for unnecessary expenses. I mean, you may have subscriptions, you may have all types of things you're paying for, and you don't even realize that you're paying for them. Once you actually do a budget, you're like, wow, I didn't realize they had that much in subscriptions. I never watch that, or I never do this, or I never go to that gym, or whatever.
Well, speaking of gym, I remember, but before I did my first spending plan budget, I was a gym member, and I had the monthly subscription, and I forgot that was coming out of my bank account because I wasn't watching it. So this gives you the tool to be able to watch it, know what's going. Not knowing, not having it, the gym was benefiting and I wasn't from that membership.
Right. Yep. So it's a lot, and this is what I was talking about before, there's a lot more stress and money fights when you're not doing a budget. That fear and that anxiety from not knowing, that uncertainty, can drive a lot of money fights. And so, but if you know where your money's going and you're on the same page with your spouse, if you're married, then you actually are communicating about it, and it reduces that stress, it reduces the money fights. And then, you know, what a lot of people find is as they're doing their budget, they feel like they're getting a raise. Because once you start to see where your money's going, you're saying, you know, I don't need to be spending $100 at Starbucks every month, or, you know, whatever it is that causes your budget to go over. You start to eliminate some of those things. I mean, you actually end up with more money.
So that's some of the benefits of having a plan.
That's right. So you know, it helps you live within your means. You know, if you understand how much money you have coming in and how much money is going out, it helps you live within your means. You avoid new debt. You avoid all the overdraft fees. You know where your money's going, and you know, eliminate unnecessary expenses. It reduces the stress, and then it's freeing up monthly cash flows for your financial goals. And this is the big piece when it all comes down to it, is that this is a tool to help you build wealth, not just the spending plan itself, but when you're doing it and you see, you know, if you have $5,000 a month coming in and $4,500 a month going out, that $500 every month that's the discretionary income at the bottom. The surplus is what you're going to use to tackle your goals.
That's exactly right. So you've heard what a spending plan is, why it's important, the dangers of not having one versus having one. So now that we have all this, and hopefully you've bought into that, Jason, talk to us about creating your spending plan.
Yeah, so first of all, you want to understand what is your actually monthly take-home pay, okay? And so, you know, and a lot of people, they get this wrong because they're not sure, do I use, I get paid about $75,000 a year, do I just divide that by 12? They're not sure how much they actually get paid. So, you know, first we have to understand your net income, and that's calculated based off your frequency of pay, and it includes, you also have to average out any type of annual bonuses and things like that.
Right.
And you're really coming up with kind of two spending plans, if you will. One, you just kind of have an average for the whole year. So each month, what is the average, for the whole year? And then you're going to do another one. Once you establish that and kind of have the averages for everything, then you're going to do another one, because each month is different. A month where you get a $3,000 bonus, you're going to have a lot more take-home pay. Right. And in that scenario, you want to budget for that because you don't want that to go to waste. That's a great opportunity to use that to be able to hit your financial goals. Or the other scenario, a month like December where you have Christmas, you're going to have a lot more expenses probably. So right. You need to do a specific, budget for that month.
So it's interesting because you say determine your take-home pay. Again, a lot of people know what they get paid gross on an annual basis. That's right. Okay, yeah, we're looking at net pay. Okay, and that's critical because that's what you actually have to count on.
Exactly.
Okay? You can't count on the money that Uncle Sam takes away.
That's right.
Or anything of that nature. Now we will itemize for health insurance and things of that nature. So typically net. And I know you're going to give an example of this because my net take-home pay sometimes does include medical insurance and retirement stuff. Exactly so how do we take that into account?
Yeah, so I'm going to go over 4 examples here. Okay, so Sam gets paid weekly. All right, so his weekly paycheck after all deductions, which means if he's doing a 401k, if he's got health insurance, if he's got maybe disability, all the deductions that come out of your paycheck, his take-home, his actual paycheck that he deposits in the bank is $800. Okay. So since he gets paid weekly, what we want to do is we want to take that $800 and we want to multiply it by 52 weeks. Okay, that's going to come up with his total amount for the year, and then you're going to divide that by 12. So his monthly average would be $3,466. That's his monthly take-home pay. Okay, let's go over another example. So let's look at Kathy. Kathy's paid every other Friday in her paycheck, and after all deductions, they're $2,100.
Her paycheck.
Her paycheck is $2,100. That's right. So now, a lot of people will say, okay, I get paid every other week, every other Friday. I just multiply that by 2, and that's my monthly, take home. But that's not correct, because you get paid every other Friday, and every other Friday happens 26 times in a year.
That's right.
Okay, since there's 52 weeks. So what you're going to do is you're going to take her take-home pay of $2,100, and you're actually going to multiply that by 26 paychecks for the year, divide it by 12, and then that's going to come up with $4,550. So that's her monthly average for her take-home pay. So let's take a look at Chloe. Chloe's paid on the 1st and the 15th of every month.
So twice a month.
Twice a month, that's right. Her paycheck after all deductions and taxes is $2,700, and once a year, she usually gets approximately about a $5,000 bonus, okay? And that's net of all taxes and everything. So the same thing with your bonus, you're gonna use after all deductions, everything, what is the amount that's actually getting deposited in your bank account, okay? So we wanna calculate what her average is for the year. So we take the 2,700 times the 24 paychecks per year, and then you add that, then you add your bonus, and then you divide that by 12. That's going to come up with $5,816 for her monthly average take-home pay.
Now these are people that have steady paychecks.
That's right.
Because they have either on salary or hourly.
That's right.
I think you have an example where what if you're on commissions or you don't have a steady paycheck?
So let's take a look at Daniel. It's a great transition.
Okay.
So he's a 1099 independent contractor, and his income varies through the year. So last year he grossed $80,000. So when he did his taxes, he grossed $80,000. So general rule of thumb, okay, when you're a 1099 employee, to be able to take out because your taxes aren't taken out of your paycheck, you're getting paid gross. So we want to pull out the taxes so we don't spend what we're going to have to eventually spend on taxes. So a general rule of thumb is to take out 20% of taxes, all right? So the way we do that is we take his $80,000. Okay, that's what he grossed last year, and that's what he thinks he's going to make at least for this year. Okay? And we're going to multiply that by 80%. Why 80%? It's basically taking out the 20% taxes and just multiplying what's left. Then we're going to divide that by 12, and so he ends up with an average of $533. $5,333 is his average monthly take-home pay. Now, with both Chloe and Daniel, how they have, Chloe has the bonus that comes up once a year. Daniel is a 1099 and his income varies. The important thing to note there is even though we've come up with an average, and this is what I was saying, you kind of have two budgets. You have one, just so you know, kind of the average month for the whole year of what you get paid. But at the same time, Chloe doesn't get her $5,000 bonus. She doesn't get it averaged out over 12 months.
That's right.
So you have to figure out what is you're going to take home each month to do that specific month budget.
That's right.
Same thing with Daniel, slightly different. His income varies, but the concept is the same. So he feels very confident that he can at least make $4,000 a month. Okay, so then we want to do that specific month's budget based off the minimum he thinks he can make. And then if there's a seasonal months where he thinks I can at least make $8,000 this month, I'm very confident of that, then I'm going to budget off of that. If he ends up making more than that, we need a plan of what we're going to do when we make more, and that way, and those will go to the financial goals that you're targeting. Depending on where you're at in the path to financial freedom.
That's exactly right. And again, when you're on commissions or 1099, you're going to obviously have to take into account your particular circumstance, how long you've been on this, because he gave you 1 year. There's some people who've been doing this for years and have a better understanding. Or if you make a lot more in commission, your tax bracket is higher, so you know what your tax has been over the year. It may not be 20, maybe 25%.
Right, yeah.
So you have to apply this to your particular circumstance. But very critical, if your business is seasonal, accountants make the bulk of their money first quarter versus some salespeople that make the bulk of it in the last quarter of the year. Right. So you have to be able to plan for that, which we'll also talk about having enough savings to keep you to the leaner months. But this is a good starting point for you to start creating your spending plan.
That's right.
So we're still talking about doing that. This is your income.
Okay.
Now you said the expenses are the other side. Talk us through the expense
Yeah,
side.
so we've already established the income and the take-home income. Now we're going to be looking at, how do we come up with all the different expenses? So these the ones that we've listed here are some common expenses. You have your giving, your housing, which would include your mortgage or things that you purchase for the home. You have food, transportation. Now, we put here minimum debt payments, okay? Because what we were trying to establish first when you do your budget is what are your monthly living expenses, okay? So as opposed to, I'm putting extra this debt or I'm saving extra each month, we're going to come up with a plan for that.
Right.
But let's first establish what are my monthly living expenses, and then we're going to also look at personal things like maybe I get a haircut or any other things like that. And we'll get into some more details there. Lifestyle, health, insurance, and then you always have to have a miscellaneous category. That's important because we forget things. We're human. Birthdays come up that you forget, or you go out to eat and you didn't plan on doing that. Your family came in town, so you have to have you have to allow yourself some margin to mess up.
That's right. So in this, as we come up with categories, for example, how would we manage? I spend. Christmas doesn't happen until the end of the year.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say I spend $2,000 on Christmas gifts. Do I have to put that in my monthly budget?
I think it's wise to do that, honestly. I think it's wise to escrow the things that you're going to spend on. I mean, for example, I typically pay for my, car insurance once every 6 months.
Right.
And I do that because you can save more if you pay for it in those lump sums. But, I have a line item in my budget, in my spending plan, that, I take that number, I divide it by 6, and then I save up for that amount. Or sometimes real estate taxes. It's not escrowed for people, so you kind of create your own escrow. If your real estate taxes are $2,400 for the year, you divide that by 12, and then you take $200 every month, and you start escrowing for it to be able to pay for your real estate taxes.
That's right.
So I'm going over here a sample spending plan because a lot of times people just need to see an example. They need, and if you're for the first time creating your budget, sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I kind of know what I spend, and then they start listing some of the main ones, and then I'm working with this, working with it through them, working with this through them, and I point out, what about your children's activities, or what about going out to eat? I forgot that one.
That's
forgot that one. So just looking at a sample spending plan here, you have your take-home income up here. That's the total. And then you go through each line item of what you're spending. So this person gives $650 to their church every month, and then you have they have how much they're saving into their into their emergency reserve, how much their education savings are. You have your mortgage, you have your taxes. So you have all the different line items of housing. Same thing with automobile. You got to remember gas. You got to remember to put some away for maintenance of the car. Your car will break. You will need new tires occasionally.
That's right.
You will have to get oil changes. You need to be prepared for that. So put a little line item there. Tolls, don't forget about those. You have. I think it's important to break up food into two different categories. You have your groceries and you have your dining out, or you're going out to eat, because it's important to establish what you're spending in groceries every month, and then you need to know kind of what you're spending and going out to eat. The food category, both the groceries and the eating out, are one of your biggest budget busters. So it's good to get a grasp of that so that you don't go over in those categories. And then you have your insurance premium. A lot of insurance is like health insurance, disability. Sometimes that's taken out of our paycheck.
Right.
So we don't want to add that back into the budget. That's already accounted for.
Got it.
But maybe homeowners, or you're paying for like a term life insurance policy. You want to have that down there. Medical expenses. Go ahead and factor in. A couple times a year going to the doctor, and then have a line item for additional medical expenses.
Right.
To be able to pay copays and those types of things. Same thing with your going to the dentist or any prescriptions you may have. Getting your eyes looked at. Once a year, and then. The school and childcare, you got all your debts here and your entertainment, and then your different miscellaneous categories.
Another one also, clothing here that you kind of skipped over, but I have children, and normally I I buy them clothes once or twice a year in bulk.
Yep.
Okay. So I know more or less right before school starts how much I'm going to go in school in clothing. So here's where one of those examples where I can itemize. If I'm going to spend, $400 on clothes, put away approximately $40 a month, $35 a month, so that when the time comes around, I've got the money to be able to take care of it.
And if you haven't itemized any of these, in that, like a clothing, for example, and you come up to August and it's like, oh, school's starting, I've got to buy some clothes. Make sure you put that in that month's budget, because you got to put $400 for using that example into clothes, and then make sure you're going to have to reduce something else by $400, so you don't go over and end up going into debt. And so after you get through this whole, this whole budget, you see here at the bottom where you have your net income. That's really what we're looking at as a tool to be able to help you build wealth over time. And so if you have an extra certain amount of money over time, in this case $300, then as a portion of that we can use to pay down debt. Or possibly we can use that to start to add savings and to put into your investments.
So a big reason to have a spending plan is to ultimately see what your net income is.
That's right.
Okay, so and you're just about to explain how to calculate that.
That's right. So basically, to calculate your net income, you take your total income minus your expenses, and that's your net income. And it's really important once you come up with your net income, that just because you have extra doesn't mean woohoo, I can go spend like crazy. And the whole point of this is to get you to a place where you can start really knocking out your financial goals and making progress.
So if it's positive, what do you do?
That's right. So if it's positive, you're directing that surplus towards your financial goals. And the path to financial freedom, if you're in foundation, sometimes it's paying off debt. If you're in formation, you're starting to build, then we're putting extra away, for your savings.
But what if it's negative, Jason?
So if it's negative, then we got to start making some adjustments, right? Because what happens if your budget is negative, that means you're probably either pulling from your savings or you're going deeper into debt. And those two things aren't good. So we got to look to see how can we decrease our expenses, or potentially how can we earn more money. Maybe we need to work more extra hours. Maybe we need to work overtime. Maybe we need to get a side job.
Side hustle.
Yeah, maybe we need to even look at getting a different job. Maybe we've cut as many expenses as we can and we just cannot make enough. We can't cut enough to be able to make it. So, you have to have a plan for that.
Yeah, this is tough because when we see negative spending plans, sometimes the emotional aspect gets in here, because we'll say, okay, you're negative, so what are you going to cut back? No one likes cutting back anything.
That's
okay.
Right.
Oh, what about your kid's private school? Let's not go there.
Right.
So I get it. And I'm not saying go cut out and live like a pauper, but the reality is, if you have a negative cash flow at the end of the month, you will never be able to progress. So something will have to change.
That's right.
So how can we improve our monthly cash flow?
So you can reduce or eliminate discretionary expenses. Okay, so if you're in the negative, or even if you're not in the negative, and you just want to improve your monthly cash flow, eating out's a big one, and I don't not just mean going out to dinners. That's a big one too. But maybe you bring your lunch to work. That saves $3,000 to $4,000 a year. Which equates to $300, $400, $500 a month.
That's right.
So that's a big one you can do. There's a lot of other things you can do. If you look down your budget, they're going to stick out at you. I didn't realize I was spending this much. I didn't realize I was spending in this category, and you can start to cut those things. So another way is you can increase your monthly household income, and we went over ways to do that. So what we talked about in the net worth piece is you could also pay down debt.
That's right.
And we're going to talk about that a lot more when we get into the debt lesson. But when you pay down debt, and let's say you eliminate your credit card debt, you're not having to make that payment. That reduces those expenses.
That's right.
So you have more left over at the end of the month.
Right.
So the more debt we pay off, the more positive our monthly cash flow becomes.
That's right.
So, and sometimes it may mean downsizing your lifestyle. I'm personally guilty. There's been times where I vacationed way too much, went out to eat way too much, and
bought a car that maybe
they bought way too much car.
Right.
Absolutely. I've been there, done all of those, and sometimes you just have to learn to live within your means. And not that you have to just be ultra frugal forever, but if you can be frugal for a while, get your debt knocked out, then you'll have a higher monthly cash flow over the long term.
And that's the ultimate goal, because when you have consistent positive net income, okay, you can now start directing money towards your financial progress, okay, towards your savings goals, okay, and ultimately, as you build your savings goals, that ultimately leads to financial freedom.
That's right. That's
Okay,
right.
so give us a few best practices for implementing a spending plan, because again, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is not easy.
Nope, it's not. And so the first time, if you've never done one or you're just getting back into it, one really good idea is to track your spending pattern over the last 3 months. And so I'm a big spreadsheet fan, but if you want to print out your statements or download them all into a spreadsheet, your last 3 months of all your credit cards, all your checking accounts, anything that you use to spend, download that all into one spreadsheet and then categorize those by the categories that we showed you on the sample budget.
That's right.
And then get an average of those 3 months. That'll start to give you a true idea of what you're spending in those categories. That's about an hour to 2 hours for some people to do all of that.
That's
okay,
right.
It'll take a little bit of investment and time, but trust me, once you start to get this down pat, when I do my budget every month, it's like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, once it's set up.
And once it's set up. Now, you're not going to be there overnight. It's going to take some time to get to that point.
And there are tools these days that you don't have to go line item. There's some tools that automate some of this.
That's right.
You know, there's some website tools. Some banks offer software. Depending on how you've engaged AllGen or not, we may have given you some of the tools. But
right.
there are ways to facilitate this. But it will take some time initially.
Yeah, and we honestly don't care which tool you use.
Yeah.
Find the one that works best for you.
Right.
And so if once you find the one that works best for you, stick with it. But here's the other issue is that the problem is people with budgets, they get to this point where they try it didn't work, they give up. And they never try it again. They didn't allow it enough time to start to work for them.
That's exactly right.
Let me just tell you straight up, it's not going to work for you the first time. You're going to mess up, okay? If you can get past that psychologically, then you're going to be in a position where, okay, I messed up. Let me just use my failures.
That's right.
and learn from those mistakes, and then constantly refine that over time. And you're going to get better and better, and it's going to start to work out. But you got to give it time, and you got to stick with it. Don't give up.
That's
Keep
right.
going.
Be patient with yourself. We look forward to hearing the stories of how great you're doing a spending plan, and we look forward to seeing you soon.